Hey guys, this is Dhruv and welcome back to my YouTube channel Programming Routine. So guys, in this video we are going to learn that what are algorithms and flowchart in a C programming language. So let's begin. So guys, basically algorithms are the steps which written in such a manner that if these steps are executed one by one, then they give you a desired output of a particular problem. In a simple way, we can say that algorithms are the problem solving techniques. So what are flowcharts? So flowcharts are the graphical representation of the algorithm. That means the steps you write in the algorithms to solve a particular programs. If these steps are represented in a graphical form, then these steps are known as flowcharts. Now let's take a look on some rules, on some pictures we use to represent the steps of a algorithm. So the very first figure we use to represent the steps of execution flowchart is the oval shape. So the oval shape is used to represent the start and end point of a C program. That means if we have a step to start a program and we have a step of algorithm to end a problem, then we use this oval shaped figure to represent in a flowchart. Okay, now the second figure we use in flowchart is that parallelogram. So this parallelogram is used to represent the input and output function, output steps in the algorithms. So as we talk about the variables in our previous video, that we have if you have to do a problem, if you have to solve a problem, then you need some variables to perform to perform the actions on that particular variable. So first thing, you have to input the variables by the user. So for input and after the process we have to output that variable also. So for input and output purposes we use this parallelogram. Okay, now the third figure is this rectangle. So this rectangle is used to represent the process step. That means if you have to process something on a variable, on a particular variable, then you have to represent this process in this particular rectangle. Now the fourth figure is this diamond figure. So whenever you have to make a decision, let's take a example that if you have to make a algorithm to solve the particular problem, that check whether given number is even or odd, then you have to make a decision that either the number is divisible by 2 or not. So for decision making statement we use this diamond. So now let's move on to our fifth figure. So our fifth figure is very interesting. This arrow, and this is not a DC character arrow, this is an arrow which connects these processes. That if you have to connect the start step with the input step, then you have to use this arrow. Okay, so for connecting these steps you have to use the arrow. Now let's solve some problems with the algorithms and flowcharts, so you can easily understand what are they. So move on to our first question. So our first question is, write an algorithm and draw flowchart to print programming protein. So for this particular problem, you what you think to solve this particular problem. So the very first step in every algorithms is the start, or you can say that begin. Some people use start, some people use begin. Both have the similar meaning. So the very first step is start. Whenever you have to solve a problem, you first have to start this. Okay. So the next step is, so the second step is because you don't have to perform any action on variables or etc. You simply have to print programming protein. Okay. So in the second step you simply display programming protein. Okay, so the third step is to end the program. Of course, if you what you have to start, you have to end also. So last step of every problem is the end statement. Okay, so the very first step in every problem is to start, and the last step in every problem is to end. Okay, so this is the algorithm. Now move on to our flow chart. So for the flow chart, as the algorithm's first step is start. So what we need to input for the start function, this is the oval figure. Okay, so the very first step is to start the program. So we input an oval shaped figure to start. Now the second thing is to display programming protein. So for display purpose we use, because display is a output function, so we use an parallelogram. Okay, so this is our second step, programming protein. Now the third step is to end the program. So for end purpose we again use the oval shape figure. Now this is our flow chart. Now we have to connect these steps one by one. So for connecting the steps we use arrowhead. So now our flow chart of this particular problem is ready. So first step is to start the program, second step is to display programming protein, and third step is to end the program. Now move on to our second problem. So this is our second problem, that is write an algorithm and draw a flow chart for addition of two numbers. So the very first thing you have to do is again start. Okay. So the second step is to input two numbers by the user, by which you can perform the addition of that particular two numbers which user entered. Okay, and you save these two numbers which user entered in a and b, as a and b are the variables. Okay, so now move on to our third step. So in our third step we add these two variables, that is a plus b, and save the result of these two variables addition into our third variable, that is c. And that's why when we assign some value into a variable, then we use set, that is set c equal to a plus b. That means the compiler set c is equal to a plus b. Okay, so now move on to our step number 4. So now our step number 4 is to display the result, because if you add two number, if you perform some action, then you have to display the result also. So our step number 4 is to display the sum equal to c. So as always, our last step is to end the problem. So this is the algorithm of that particular problem. So let's take a look, and after that we move on to our flow chart. So as always, our first step is to start a problem. So we use oval shaped figure for the start step. So the second step is to input a and b, because this is an input function, so we use a parallelogram. Now move on to our third step, that is set c equal to a plus b, because this is a process statement, so we input a rectangle. Okay, so our third step is to process, that is addition of two numbers. This is a process which we do on two variables, so this is a process statement, so we use a rectangle. Okay, now move on to our fourth step, that is to display the result c. So this is a output statement, so we again use a parallelogram figure. So this is our output statement, so we use a parallelogram, that is displays sum equal to c. Now our last step is to end the program, so again we use a oval shaped figure. So in the last statement we end the program, so we use a oval figure. So now we have to connect these figures also, so we use a arrowhead. So now our flowchart is completed. This is the flowchart of this particular problem. So now move on to our third question, and this is the last question. I select this question because in this question we can use the decision making statement. So the decision making statement is the last statement which I don't elaborate you. So for elaboration of decision making statement, I solve this problem also. So now move on to its algorithm. So this is the algorithm of this particular program. So in the very first step you need to start the program. In the second step you need to input a variable a in which you input the number which the user want to check it is even or odd. So in the third step we check if a is modulus by 2 is equals to 0. Modulus operator, I think you know the what is modulus operator. Uh, modulus operator return the remainder uh, that when divided by 2, that what is the remainder of this particular statement. Let's suppose that a equal to 4, so 4 modulus by 4 divided by 2, the remainder is 0, so 4 is a even number. So if a modulus by 2 is equal to 0, then this program returns or display number is even. If the remainder is not equal to 0, then it display number is odd. And in the last step, that is step 4, we end the program. So now let's move on to the flowchart of this particular program. So this is the flowchart of this particular problem. In the first step, we start the program, then we input a variable a, then we check. This is the decision making figure, and that is the diamond figure. So in this figure, we check if a divided a modulus by is equals to 0. If this condition is true, then the program follow this, and if the condition is false, then program display this, and after this program will be end, and after display the number is odd, the program will end. So this is the flowchart of this particular problem. So in this flowchart I also explain what is the user making state. So these are some questions which you have to solve by your own. If you have any problem, then comment down below. I will try to solve your problems. And that's it for this video. If you like this video, then don't forget to hit that like button and share with your friends who wants to learn programming. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, then subscribe please. And if you have any problem regarding this content, then comment down below. I will try to solve this problem. Thank you.